I'd never stayed at a lake house before. My girlfriend Dana invited me to her family's old property deep in the woods of Maine. The kind of place where cell phone service dies 20 minutes before you even arrive. Peaceful, quiet, secluded. Too secluded. It was a cozy little cabin by the lake, and I do mean little. One bedroom, a small kitchen, an old fireplace that made the entire place smell faintly of ash and damp wood. The lake outside stretched on forever, black and still, as if the trees that surrounded it were leaning in to listen. Dana and I had planned a quiet weekend, no distractions, just fishing, campfires, and each other. The first night was calm, but the second night, that's when the house began to feel different. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise, a tap, tap, tap against the window. Rain, I thought. But the sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic. Dana was fast asleep. I crept out of bed and walked over to the window near the small living room. It faced the woods, not the lake. There was no one there, just thick darkness and pine trees swaying in the wind. I figured it was a branch maybe and turned to go back to bed. But something caught my eye. There was a window on the far wall, one I hadn't noticed before. Strange. I could have sworn that wall was solid. I stepped closer. It was small, square, and completely black. Then I realized this window wasn't showing the outside. There was no reflection, no trees, no moonlight, just darkness. I leaned closer, squinting. My breath fogged the glass. That's when a hand slapped against the inside of it. I jumped back, stared, but the window was gone. I blinked. That wall was solid wood again. No window, no hand. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Dana found me sitting on the couch, pale and shaken. I'd asked her, was there ever a window on that wall? She looked confused. There's never been a window there. I pointed at the spot, trembling. She went quiet. Sarah whispered, my grandpa boarded it up after my uncle went missing here. He said, that window didn't show the outside. You said what wanted to come in. A few summers ago, my brother Jake and I decided to rent a lake house in upstate New York. We found this quaint little place online, cheap for the season, and nestled right at the edge of this glassy lake, surrounded by towering pines. The ad said it came with a private boathouse and a little canoe. I should have asked why it was so cheap. The first 2 days were picture perfect. We grilled, fished, and even swam in the lake. The boathouse was at the far end of the dock, slightly crooked and old, with thick ivy creeping over its wooden walls. We didn't go inside at first. There was a rusty lock on the door. I figured it was just storage. But on the third night, we heard something inside. Jake and I were drinking on the deck when we heard it. A loud bang, like something had slammed into the inside wall of the boathouse. He grabbed the flashlight. We crept down the dock, the planks creaking under every step. When we reached the boathouse, everything went still. Then something inside dragged itself slowly across the floorboards. I swear to you, we both heard it breathing. Jake rattled the lock, trying to see in through a crack in the wood. Then we heard it whisper. It said, my name, not Jake's. Mine. I turned to run, panicking, but Jake stayed and kicked the door once. It fell open, and whatever was inside ran out. But here's the thing. We didn't see it. We felt it. Like something rushing past, freezing the air, making the whole dock tremble. The lake itself seemed to groan. Jake screamed. Not from pain, but from the sudden cold that clung to him. Like something had passed through him. He was never the same after that. Wouldn't speak. Wouldn't eat. Spent his night staring out the window at the lake, muttering something under his breath. When I finally managed to get him to leave, I turned back to glance at the boathouse. And I swear, there was something standing in the shadows, inside the doorway, watching us leave. It was the summer before college. My girlfriend Sophie and I had borrowed her uncle's lake house for one last trip before our lives changed. The lake was secluded. No neighbours, no boats, just silence. Except at night. That first evening, we sat by the dock watching the sunset, just enjoying the stillness. But as the sun dipped beneath the tree line, we noticed something strange as a light. It started as a soft blue glow beneath the lake's surface. At first, we thought it was some kind of submerged lamp or bioluminescence. But the way it moved, it wasn't stationary. It circled, slowly, then stopped, then rose, just a little, before sinking again. I wanted to leave it alone. Sophie, being the braver of us, insisted we check it out the next night. So we did. We waited until the light returned, almost exactly the same time, and got into the canoe, paddling toward it in the dark. As we got closer, the light flickered. I leaned over to try to see beneath the surface. That's when I saw it. That face. Not human. Not really. Eyes wide and glowing, skin almost translucent, just floating there, watching me. I yelled, nearly capsizing the canoe. Sophie screamed, pulling me back. And then, the light shot away. Not drifted, shot. At a speed nothing underwater should move. We paddled back, hearts racing. But when we got to the dock, something was wrong. The house was different. Lights were on that we hadn't left on. The windows, open when we left, were now shut. Inside, nothing looked touched. But then we saw it. On the kitchen table, a photograph. One we'd never seen before. It was us sitting in the canoe that same night. Only taken from the shore. We never found the camera. And every night after, the light returned, closer and closer to the dock. We left on the fourth night, and 2 weeks later, Sophie got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, another photo. Us asleep in bed at the lake house. And through the open bedroom door, standing in the hallway, was the figure from the lake. The lake house belonged to my late grandfather. After his passing, it sat empty for nearly 2 years. I never liked the place growing up. Too isolated, too quiet. But something in me felt drawn to it after he was gone, like I owed him a visit. So I drove up in early October. Leaves had turned. The air was crisp. The lake still as glass. Inside, everything was untouched. A thin layer of dust on the mantel. His fishing hat still hung on the same hook. The place was frozen in time, except for one thing. On the kitchen table was a note. It was in my grandfather's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. Do not open the boathouse. Whatever you hear, do not go near it at night. I laughed at first. Thought it was a joke. Maybe something he wrote for fun and forgot about. But that first night, I heard it at exactly 3:07 a.m. A whispering. Faint but insistent. Not words, just sounds, emanating from the direction of the boathouse. Now, the boathouse was old. My grandfather hadn't used it in years, but I couldn't help myself. The next night, I stood on the porch at 3 a.m., waiting, and right on time, the whispers came again. This time, louder. It was like dozens of voices, men, women, children, all speaking at once, just below the threshold of understanding. I should have listened to the note, but instead I took a flashlight and walked down to the dock. The boathouse stood silent, weathered, half collapsed. I opened the door. Inside, nothing. Dust, cobwebs, old tools. I felt silly until I turned to leave. There, scratched into the back of the boathouse door, were dozens of names, including mine, and under it a date, tomorrow's date. I ran back to the house, locked every door, didn't sleep. At 3:07 a.m. the whispers returned, but this time they weren't coming from outside. They were coming from inside the walls. I left before dawn, drove until the lake was far behind me. I haven't been back, but sometimes when I'm up late, I swear I hear whispering through the vents in my apartment. And I don't know what will happen on the date scratched beneath my name, but it's getting closer. I didn't know what grief could do to a person until I lost her. My fiancée, Emily, drowned in Lake Marrow 2 summers ago. We'd been staying at a rental lake house for our anniversary. It was supposed to be a celebration, but a storm rolled in. She went out on the kayak alone. She never came back. They said it was an accident, a freak current, that the storm disoriented her and she overturned. But I didn't believe it, as I heard her scream, and it wasn't the scream of panic. It was terror. After that, I moved away, tried to rebuild, but the guilt followed me. The sleepless nights, the dreams, always of the lake, always of her, calling me. I finally gave in and returned to Lake Marrow a year later, built not to move on, to confront whatever had taken her. I rented the same house. Everything looked the same. The pier, the tall reeds, even the kayak was still tied up. On the first night, I heard the boards creak outside. I opened the back door, and there she was, Emily, soaking wet, pale, her hair clinging to her face. She smiled, but it wasn't her smile. Her head twitched slightly, unnaturally. She whispered, "Come into the water," and disappeared. I didn't sleep. I searched every inch of that lakefront the next morning. No footprints, no sign anyone had been there. But I stayed another night, and she came again. This time, she didn't speak. She screamed, so loud the windows shook, so loud the trees bent toward the sound. I fell to the floor, clutching my ears. When I opened my eyes, the door was open. The trail of wet footprints led inside. Of the bedroom, the mirror, on the glass, written in dripping black. "You let me drown." I ran, drove through the night, nearly crashed 3 times. When I got home, my phone buzzed. It was a text. No number, just a message. The lake never forgets. I moved again, changed my number. But every year, on the anniversary, there's water on my floor in the morning, footprints leading from my front door. Back to the bedroom. Not all horrors hide in the shadows of night. Some drift gently across calm water. Some knock on your door wearing a familiar face. And some never leave. Thank you for listening to 5 Lake House True Horror Stories. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because new true horror drops every week. Until then, lock your doors, close your blinds, and if you ever hear a whisper across the lake, don't answer it.